to the place I know with the mystery shack and the forest gnomes. I'm already packed, so come on, let's go. Don't get me started, my heart's in gravity. My heart's in gravity falls. The world has changed. I feel it in the pines. Much that once was is lost, so now few live who remember it.
In a decade past, before the streaming giants ruled the earth, maps were divided by which cable empire provided them coverage. Time capsules and book clubs written by curators from this time tell the legend of a magical shire called Gravity Falls.
One curator was chosen from the pirates, a promiscuous bard from the Atlantic coastline named Charley.
One curator was chosen from the Animators, an ancient race of sorcerers who, it was said, could create the illusion of life through a series of runes. Her name was Ella, Princess of Philadelphia.
In the fires of Mount Pipedream, these curators forged a pod to capture the tales of old. And into this pod they cast their secrets, their memories, and a vast hallway rich with conspiracy. One pod to cast them all.
But they were not alone on this journey, for in today's tale, they sought help from Tony of the Golden Mark, the village jerk whose camera, vault access, and knowledge of a much more powerful bard, Alfred the Weird of Linwood, would prove vital on today's quest. Welcome back, Tony.
How you doing?
This is your second appearance on this podcast.
Yeah, thanks for coming back.
It is indeed, and I'm happy to be back, especially to talk about this episode.
Yeah, you were previously on our Time Traveler's Pig episode.
Mm-hmm.
When we booked you for that, I messaged you if you could pick any episode of the show, which would it be? And you said, well, obviously the one with Weird Al, but you're not there yet.
Right, but now you are.
So in a way, be our guest choice. Be our guest choice.
Yeah.
It is, it's true.
One could say that, and I didn't even need to be on your podcast 10 times to get it.
No.
I beat the system that I devised.
Yeah.
We do have a similar tradition on our podcast that something happens when you're on our podcast twice. You know this? You heard about this? Tony, today you are graduating to a docent of Mystery Shack Look Back.
Excellent.
You know, if this whole podcast is sort of a museum of the Gravity Falls fandom, and we're the curators, so...
It belongs in a museum, sure.
Exactly. And now, so do you.
When we went through Time Traveler's Pig, we were giving you on a tour, but you've been to this museum before. You could give tours if need be. So you're graduating to a docent of this museum podcast.
And we like to do a little graduation ceremony every time someone graduates.
We actually have booked a guest speaker for this particular graduation.
Oh, yeah,
okay.
yeah. Who did we get?
David Ganssle, a.k.a. Doggins.
Oh, wow.
Hello, that's who I am.
Yeah, it turns out anytime we have a returning guest, they're allowed to bring one David.
Yes, Alexa has previously used this this opportunity and brought David
It's
Spencer.
a coupon. We give him a little coupon.
One free David.
I am just gradually working my way through all the Pipe Dream podcasts.
That's true.
How did this not get made? You're next.
Is this your favorite David, Tony?
This is certainly one of the Daves I know. This is one of the Daves I know.
Oh, you've always been my favorite, Bruce McCullough.
However, one does not simply walk into Mystery Shack Look Back.
It's true.
One has to graduate to docent. So why don't we start the ceremony?
All right. So for your graduation ceremony, I have prepared something for you, Tony. Now repeat after me.
Okay.
I state your name.
I state your name.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
To uphold the duties of a Mystery Shack Look Back docent.
To uphold the duties of a Mystery Shack Look Back docent.
To preserve the history.
To preserve the history.
And protect the mystery.
And protect the mystery.
Of the Gravity Falls fandom.
Of the Gravity Falls fandom.
To fumigate the Hall of Conspiracies.
To fumigate the Hall of Conspiracies.
And to conspire the Hall of Fumigation.
And to conspire the Hall of Fumigation.
To build a portal between the Hall of Conspiracies and Vault Disney.
To build a portal between the Hall of Conspiracies and Vault Disney.
So we can visit our friends Charley and Ella more often.
So we can visit our friends Charley and Ella more often.
And to play shortstop in the Gravity Falls fandom softball team.
And to play shortstop in the Gravity Falls fandom softball team.
In their intramural showdown. Against the Super Robot Monkey Team Hyperforce Go fandom softball team.
Against the Super Robot Monkey Team Hyperforce Go softball team.
You've caught the Charlie disease where you can't say that show's name for the life of you.
It's been a few months. I covered it on the podcast twice, and I still got it wrong.
Twice on the podcast. On this podcast, I have attempted and failed to say that show's name. Are we gonna give me another try right now?
Charlie, can you do it?
You know what? Rule of threes.
Okay. When that softball game comes up, you're going down. Super robot?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got it.
So far, so good.
Monkey.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it. I believe in you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sound it out.
Hyperforce Go!
Yeah!
You did it! You did it! That is the entirety of the ceremony. I believe you are now graduated, Tony.
Woo! I'm a docent!
Tony's a docent. I can say that monkey show's name, apparently.
Big accomplishments today. Big accomplishments.
I feel like my accomplishment pales in comparison to yours, Charlie.
And my accomplishment is I'm finally on this podcast, not as the voice of Joshua Pruitt.
You did briefly voice Joshua Pruitt in our episode on Fight Fighters, but now you're here. So you've been an avid listener of this podcast.
Yeah, Charlie has described you to me as the biggest fan of our podcast, which I'm very honored to hear.
I enjoy this podcast a lot. I've been listening from the beginning, and my name is heard in the patron shoutouts at the end.
That it is.
And that's my claim to fame related to this podcast.
I'm just glad I get to be an expert in this. This is Wander Over Yonder, right?
Yeah,
that's right. So today we're talking about the Wander Over Yonder episode, The Picnic. This is the Season 1. Okay, David, why don't we let's talk a little bit about who you are, because we've met Tony in our Time Travelers pit.
Yeah,
Let's do a refresher. Let's do a refresher on each of you, just for the listeners.
Well, my role on the internet is mostly writing Tony's coattails and things. People who listen to his podcast have heard me a few too many times, not offering my guest choice option, and
refusing.
Just refusing that guest choice.
I'm gonna pull that thing out of your back pocket with a jaws of life someday if I need to.
Oh, I've got it locked up tight. I am letting that thing ferment. But I have been a fan of Gravity Falls since I think I got into it towards the end of season 1. I didn't have cable, but I was going through a phase where I was binging all of Phineas and Ferb on Netflix, and when I got to the end of that, I was like, what else is a good Disney cartoon? Because apparently Disney TV cartoons are good now.
Yeah, remember when Disney shows were on Netflix? Oh, good times. Remember when things were on, like, one platform?
Yeah.
Like, you could just watch
kind
things
of.
on...
Remember non-exclusivity?
That's wacky.
And Gravity Falls came highly recommended, so... the first 2 episodes I saw, since I didn't have cable, were the 2 that were free on the Disney website at the time, which I believe were Irrational Treasure and Double Dipper.
Oh, those are great ones to start with.
Yeah, they were early enough in the show's run that I didn't feel completely lost, but
Right.
They were also, solid enough into the first season that, like, they've worked all the kinks out.
They found their footing.
Yeah, exactly. They found their footing. They were solid episodes. And then, not having cable, I sought out the rest of season 1 through dubious means. And I basically caught all up right before the season 1 finale.
Awesome.
And then got to wait in real time for season 2 with everybody else.
All 364 days. Wasn't that great?
Tony, for the listeners that skipped straight to Dungeons and more Dungeons and want nothing to do with Time Traveler's Pig, who are you and why?
Yeah, well, what haven't you done at this point, Tony?
Well, my name is Tony Goldmark. I have a podcast called Escape from Walt Disney. I used to do a YouTube series called Some Jerk with a Camera, and I too am a pretty big Gravity Falls fan. The first episode I saw was actually the pilot, the very first episode that aired. Although I don't think I saw its original airing. I think I'd heard good things about this show, and I wanted to check it out, and I had TiVo by that point. So I think I just TiVo'd a bunch of episodes and then watched them in the order they originally aired. And
Even more quaint, the days of TiVo.
And I just fell in love with the show immediately. I think the gag that really made me realize, okay, this is exactly my kind of show. I have no choice but to stand.
You have no choice but to stand.
No choice but to stand pines. Was the gag where the mysterious stranger takes off his cloak. It's like, so we're gnomes. Let's get that out of the way.
Yeah. Oh no. Same. That was the moment that turned me over too.
Yeah.
As well.
Talk all about it in the Tourist Trapped episode.
Schmabulok. Schmabulok. Yes.
I just noticed, though, I watched the show on Amazon. Dave watched it through piracy, Ella watched it on cable, and Tony watched it through TiVo. We have all 4 fandom experiences represented in this
By
podcast.
our powers combined.
We are Mystery Shack Look Back.
I mean, cable by way of TiVo.
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
it's one step removed, though.
Sure.
It is a slightly, yeah, I mean, because I was there from the beginning. I was there before the Disney Channel premiere of Let It Shine. Yeah, that's exactly what I sound like. You know what? You should do voice acting or something.
Yeah, wow, maybe I should. Nah, sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, probably.
I could, sprain a vocal cord that way. Can and have.
Now, I should say, when I first saw Gravity Falls, I kind of recognized the art style. I thought the art style looked a little familiar to me. And I did a little research, and I found out that, yes, indeed, this was the same guy who did that Scribble Talk video with Weird Al.
That
That's
is
right.
correct.
That's right.
Long before Probabilitor was even a thing. Alex Hirsch did a video back in 2009 when he was fresh out of Cal Arts, where somehow, I still don't know how, this unknown kid was able to do this.
No, yeah, they make a whole joke about it where he's like,
Weird Al Yankovic?
Apparently.
Wow! How did I book you?
I'm not really sure. Kind of mad at my agent, actually.
Oh my gosh, Al! I am a huge fan!
Must have been some Cal Arts advantage.
Yeah, he got Weird Al to be in the first Scribble Talk video, where Al is being interviewed by this scribble on the wall named Walby, and it's a great, funny video, and
we will link that in the description.
I always loved it, and so when I saw Gravity Falls, I was like, oh, that kid caught a break, awesome.
Yeah, we're calling back to a lot of stuff here, because that's, I mean, Walby we talked all about in our very first episode, so,
And then there was also a second collaboration. When they recorded this episode, Alex and Al shot a Vine together.
Oh, okay.
We're doing all the throwbacks today. TiVo, Vine.
I know, where Alex complained he was feeling weird and then uses a sneeze to transition into Al wearing his trademark flannel coat.
I vaguely remember that, yeah.
I feel weird.
I think he had like a vest on and Al squeezed into the tiny vest because Al is much taller than Alex.
Al's much taller than Daniel Radcliffe, too, but that didn't stop them, so...
You're right.
Also, this episode is written by Matt Chapman.
Very cool.
Who, creator of Homestar Runner, but also worked on Aquabat's Super Show.
Right.
Had worked with Al twice prior to this.
Oh, right.
Al played President Stuncasten.
And Super Magic Power Man.
And Super Magic Power Man, that's right.
My fellow citizens of the world, we are facing perhaps our greatest crisis.
Do not worry, young one. You are safe, little girl. I am Super Magic Power Man.
Which the entire Aquabats fandom is in debate over whether those are two separate characters or the superhero's secret identity as the President of the United States. And then Josh Weinstein, who helped Alex with the rewrites on Matt's script, worked on The Simpsons, which Al was on.
Of course, yeah.
Twice?
Yeah, twice, I think.
Twice, yes.
He who's tired of Weird Al is tired of life.
So before we get into this episode proper, we have some fan mail. We have another iTunes review. This is part of our sort of challenge to rate us 5 stars on iTunes and write a review in character as a Gravity Falls character without saying who they are, and then we will read it on the show. So here we have an iTunes review from the_pink_fedora. Review for excellent podcast and response to a challenge. In the most recent episode, Northwest Mansion Mystery, there was a challenge-ish to write my review as a Gravity Falls character. Never one to turn down a challenge-ish. I, of course, will be attempting this.
Review for Mystery Shack Look Back. This podcast has it all. Solutions for dealing with obnoxious people, shameless self-promotion, and exploitment of others. Even an appearance by yours truly, if you really needed another incentive to listen to it. Only thing it's missing is scamming tips. All in all, an excellent trap with excellent prices. Speaking of traps, you should check out The Real King. Come visit the Mystery Shack in Gravity Falls, Oregon. Behold, the famed Sasquatch, and tremble at the Cornicorn. Priced items found. Now, if you'll excuse me, the Duchess Approves is on.
Me again. That aside, this is an amazing podcast that I love listening to while doing literally everything. The hosts are hilarious and enjoyable to listen to. Thank you. Also, I get to find out what the cryptograms say. As someone who got into the show just in the past year, this podcast is amazing and lets me see what the fandom was like in the day. Please listen to this podcast. Well, thank you, the Pink Fedora. That was a very, very sweet review and a very well-written Grunkle Stan interview. Thank you to Tony for reading that part. Excellent job.
No problem.
I also must point out that this episode came out on August 3rd, 2015. On July 22nd, about a week earlier, I received a message from a friend in the voice acting community asking when the new Gravity Falls was coming out. So I responded August 3rd. And she said, too far away, give me now. So at first I was like, why would I have the jurisdiction? And then I'm like, I can find the summary of the episode. I can find the article where it says who Al is voicing. I had been working on a J.K. Simmons voice at the time. I have an Al impression. So this is what I sent back.
All right, well, apparently I have a great niece. I'm sorry that you have laryngitis, but I heard you like games. So let's play my favorite game. It's called Dungeons, Dungeons, and More Dungeons. Let's see, there has to be a copy around here somewhere. Oh, this is a not suspicious looking one. Oh no, it was actually suspicious. There was a bunch of creatures that were real trapped inside the game, like Jumanji or something.
Hi, I'm a lunatic wizard! And I dare to be stupid, dare to be stupid. And, she demanded that I post it, and, we'll check more in on that plot thread next episode, I guess.
Yeah, my favorite thing about it being that all we had of the summary at the time is that Weird Al Yankovic was going to play a, quote, lunatic wizard.
Yeah, there was an article that said Weird Al will be voicing a lunatic wizard, and the summary, Dipper and Ford play a board game together or something like that. So I was like, okay. And then just turned on my microphone and rolled with that. So Dungeons, Dungeons, and More Dungeons is the 13th episode of Season 2 of Gravity Falls, and the 33rd episode overall. It premiered on August 3rd, 2015 on Disney XD. It was directed by Steven Sandoval, written by Matt Chapman, with rewrites by Josh Weinstein and Alex Hirsch, and additional material by community writer Zach Baez. There's your D&D connection.
Yeah.
Even though he didn't work on that one, but still.
So let's get into Dungeons, Dungeons, and More Dungeons.
Great Uncle Ford! Need any help with that? No! I'm sorry, Dipper. On the dark, weird road I travel, I'm afraid you cannot follow. Well, call me for dinner.
He's just got to know.
Don't worry about what's in the basement. My brother is a dangerous know-it-all, and the stuff he's messing with is even worse.
He's just got to know.
But I can show you a little something I brought back. Is this normal?
Weird Al Yankovic guest stars.
I'm not here to play games.
Brand new Gravity Falls, Monday, August 3rd at 8:30 on Disney XD.
So, we just watched Dungeons, Dungeons, and
More Dungeons.
Dave and Tony, what did you think of that episode?
Fantastic. Absolutely a great show. I love that. I love, obviously, that they got Al on the show. I love that it's a Dungeons and Dragons riff.
Are you a fan of Al?
Yeah, I've heard of him.
For our listeners who have possibly been living, under some kind of sediment for the past, 40 years, Alfred Matthew Yankovic, a.k.a. Weird Al Yankovic, is a comedy musician who has been doing song parodies and original music since the 80s.
Yeah?
Yeah, and he's fantastic.
Yeah.
You've talked about it extensively on your content, but for those who only follow this podcast, Tony, what is your history with Alfred Matthew Yankovic.
How much time do you have? Al has been one of my big hyperfixations for literally more than half my life now. Actually, close to 2/3 of my life. I first became aware of his stuff as a little kid. I think I had a cassette of Dare to Be Stupid, and I know my dad had his greatest hits on vinyl. But the moment I became an obsessive superfan of his was when Bad Hair Day came out. That was the album that really...
That was like 96?
That was 1996. I actually saw the movie Spy Hard in theaters, and of course, his opening title to that was the best part of that movie. And then I noticed he had a new album out, Bad Hair Day, and I just became obsessed with it. And it was the 1-2 punch of both Amish Paradise and Everything You Know Is Wrong at the beginning of that album.
Oh my God, I love
Everything You Know Is Wrong is still my favorite song of all time. It's my favorite song. It's my favorite Al song, which kind of by default makes it my favorite song ever.
Yeah,
it's a They Might Be Giants pastiche where
it doesn't sound that much like They Might Be Giants to me.
It kind of does. It's specifically their first 4 albums. Back before they had a full band, when they were just two guys, they were just Flansburgh on guitar and Linnell on keyboards and a drum machine.
And Flansburgh on accordion sometimes.
Bad Hair Day was a huge obsession for me, and it's weird how these obsessions and hyperfixations kind of cross at various points. Back in 96, the Disney Channel was still a premium cable channel.
Yeah.
And I remember for Hanukkah that year, one night, my parents surprised me by saying, "Hey, we've got the Disney Channel now, because you're such a huge Disney fan."
Wow.
And I shut you not. The timing of all this sounds very biopic. It sounds very, way too convenient for anything.
Who the heck is Weird Al Yankovic?
But I swear to God, the first thing I saw when they turned on Disney Channel was an ad for There's No Going Home, for the Disney Channel special that Al did that year, which was like a concert special with sketches.
Oh, wow.
If you've never seen it, I highly recommend it.
I haven't, actually.
It's one of the greatest things Al's ever done. It's mostly a concert special, but in between each song, there's bits of Al talking about being on the road, or they do little bits here and there. There's a sketch at the end where he comes home and finds that his parents have basically replaced him with Ed McMahon. It's very bizarre. So Bad Hair Day, I was obsessed with. The Disney Channel special, I taped and wore out the tape. I watched it so much. And then in 97, The Weird Al Show had its first and only season. I remember being obsessed with that, too. I watched every episode.
Yeah.
Running with Scissors came out, obviously obsessed with that. And I've over the years, I've gone to see him in concert dozens and dozens of times. I was fortunate enough to be invited to perform at the very first, actually at all 3 Alcons in 1998, 2000, and 2002. Because, this is a whole story, but in 96, my mom got it in her head, like, hey, I have a precocious kid. I'm going to record him doing a whole album. And, what 12-year-old kid would say no to that? So because I had gotten a little bit of Dr. Demento play for the novelty of, hey, it's the children's album recorded by an actual child.
Yeah, and Dr. Demento, of course, the radio host that gave Weird Al his start.
For a while, Dr. Demento, nowadays he's strictly internet only and unfortunately behind a paywall, which is necessary because that's how he makes his living now. But for a while, he was a nationally syndicated radio show host who had a show where he played mad music and crazy comedy, and he's probably most famous for giving Weird Al his start and playing just demos that Al recorded in his bedroom with just him and his accordion, and Dr. Demento would play them on national radio, and that's how Al first got national exposure.
Right. And how he met his drummer.
Yeah, he met his drummer John Bermuda Schwartz live on the Dr. Demento show when they recorded Another One Rides the Bus in 1980.
And we have had 3 artists featured on the Dr. Demento show on this podcast with you and Michael William Hunter and Kyle Carosa. Woohoo.
And Kyle Carosa's accordion was heard at the top of the episode. My story is in 1999 when the saga begins and Phantom Menace came out.
Right.
And the album is titled...
Running with Scissors.
Running with Scissors. So I was the target demographic of Radio Disney at age 5, so it was the only station I ever had on. So I heard the saga begins potentially 3 million times?
Yeah, they played a lot of stuff over and over again. I remember when I was a kid, like the kind of progenitor of Radio Disney, although it wasn't owned by Disney, was, no one remembers this, but there was a and it turns out the reason no one remembers this is because it wasn't actually in that many markets, but San Francisco, where I grew up, was one of them. There was a radio station called Kidstar, which was kind of a kid-oriented radio station, which played a lot of Weird Al. I remember I listened to it in 96. Like, the big hits they played were like Amish Paradise and Peaches by the Presidents and Scatman, Scooby-Doo, that thing. Like they played that all the time. And it was a lot of fun. And I remember it had a lot more variety than Radio Disney had. So when Radio Disney launched, I think I gave it a shot, and then I was instantly like, this is just a less good Kidstar. Pass. I'm not interested. But I was also kind of outgrowing Disney in general by that point. That was, back when I was...
And you never went back.
No, not once.
No.
But
you don't engage with Disney anymore.
Not in the least. But that was when I was entering my Disney sucks teenage phase. But yeah, the Saga Begins was very, very, very popular on Radio Disney in 99, but they had a problem with the lyric, "Do you see him hitting on the queen?" Though he's just 9 and she's 14. And they had a problem with the line hitting on, and originally I remember hearing like its premiere on Radio Disney where it was played unedited, and then apparently, like, the next few plays after that, they just cut the line out completely, which Al hated.
Oh, no.
So just to...
Blasphemy.
And Al never would have made this concession, but he knew, like, look, they want to put this song into heavy, heavy rotation, but they have a problem with this lyric, and only because...
Yeah, and he's not really a conflict guy. He doesn't really do drama. He was like, okay.
Just because he wanted the airplay, he didn't want, it to sound like crap, so, just to satiate these... And he almost never does this. He almost never alters his songs like this for specific things, but this time he did. He went back in the studio and just changed that one line. See him talking to the queen, just so it could get played on Radio Disney without that awkward edit. And a matter of fact, there was a Radio Disney compilation CD where that version was released. So that version actually has gotten an official CD release.
I didn't know that was on a...
Radio Disney Kid Jams Volume 2, I want to say. So that's something for the rarities collectors out there, of which I am definitely one.
Absolutely.
So and then once again, he came across my radar in 2006. I was chronically on YouTube, so White and Nerdy was... unavoidable. I would say it was a meme. I would say it counted as a meme.
Oh, definitely.
I could not find someone online who was not quoting it. And neither of those spawned into me looking up the rest of the Alfred oeuvre. What finally did is that a friend did a cover of, I don't even remember what song, but I was big in the Nintendo fandom online, and a friend did a Mario Paint composer cover of one of Al's songs, and it just got me to look up the original song, and I was like, that was really funny. Me and my cousin spent like the whole night just binge watching Al music videos.
Nice.
My friend, who was also a David, one of the many great Davids of this world, was working with me at a summer camp when Internet Leaks was coming out, and we had our break at the same time, so we would hold off on listening to the new Internet Leaks until we were together. Him having actually been introduced to Weird Al by his rabbi, which of course prompted me to say, wow, he sounds
pretty fly.
Pretty fly, by the standards of rabbis.
By rabbinical standards.
Yeah,
he sounds flyer than most.
We believe he was fly, but he was not our Messiah. He was not our Mafliah.
Yeah.
I also think it's worth noting that a huge part of the reason that Ella and I bonded is, yes, we met in the Gravity Falls fandom, but I think the fact that we were both really into Weird Al was like, you are the person in this fandom I want to interact with.
Yeah.
That and the Muppets. We're in good company.
Yeah.
Dave, what is your history with Weird Al?
So I talked about mine a little bit in a video I made last year about UHF.
Weird Al's movie from the 80s.
But the short version is I had, heard scattered Al songs here and there and enjoyed them all, but it was seeing the movie UHF that made me obsessed with Al.
Probably same, honestly. That movie's really good. Ella had not seen it until I showed it to her.
Yeah, I kept never getting around to it, and then we watched it together.
It is not too much of an exaggeration to say that UHF changed my life.
Changed all our lives.
And after finally seeing it, I was like, I just got to dig deep on everything Al. And like at this point, YouTube wasn't a thing yet. There were file sharing sites, but they were not very well regulated, especially when it came to Weird Al content.
Oh, like Morpheus and Grokster or LimeWire.
Or Kazaa.
Yeah, I mean, when I got huge into Weird Al, I don't think there were even file sharing sites yet. I had to actually, it was when the Earth's crust was still warm. I had to actually go physically to record stores and peruse through the aisles to eventually collect all, at that point, 9 Al albums.
It's okay, Grandpa. Take your medicine.
I still remember trying to find all of Weird Al's music videos, and the only place I could find them online was on some music service owned by Yahoo.
Back when Yahoo had any gauge on how to use the internet.
Right.
Exactly. Where they had, like, not all of Al's videos, but more of them that I could find anywhere else, streaming in terrible, like, 240p quality.
Pristine.
That was the only quality we had back then.
We loved it, damn it.
And then, fortunately, a little while later, the Ultimate Video Collection DVD, Al released that, and so I bought that and watched all the music videos that way, and, gradually collected all the albums as I could afford them.
So you were very into kind of the visual aspect of his style as well, since you got into it because of the movie and the music videos.
I really liked what he was doing with, like obviously I loved the songs, but I also really liked what he was doing with visual parody, with, cartoonish... With cartoonish visual gags and live action.
Like the Jurassic Park video, the stop motion.
Yes.
Sure.
My favorite thing, or at least when I was a child, I don't know if this is still my favorite Al thing, but it's certainly up there, is the fake interviews he would do for LTV.
Those are amazing, yes.
We completely ripped those off when we interviewed a Big Mouth Billy Bass in one episode. We did that in Al TV style. I cannot hear someone say, you know what I'm saying, without going,
you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
You know what I'm saying?
I told you.
You know what I'm saying?
Look,
You know what I'm saying?
I said that.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
I
You
said
know what I'm saying?
Shut up! Shut up!
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I know what you're saying, all right?
The one he did with Eminem is like the peak of that art form.
Although, if you can watch the We All Have Cell Phones arc in order...
Come on. Let's get real.
Okay, for those who need the joke explained to them, in 99, and of course, me being a massive Al fan who just follows this stuff, this was like a deep cut to me when it was new, but... Okay, so in 99, Al did his Al TV special to promote Running with Scissors, and one of the...
He would take over MTV when the new album would come on.
Al TV specials are when he would take over MTV and then later VH1 with his pirate satellite broadcasting system. And
wasn't Eat It right around the time that MTV started?
Yeah, the first one was from 84,
and that was what changed his career from being like the guy on Dr. Demento to the guy that couldn't go into the store without being recognized visually.
Well, yeah, MTV showing his videos, especially the Eat It video, were that was huge, of course. But so in '99, he did on his Al TV special, he did a bunch of fake interviews. One of which was with Michael Stipe, where he says,
maybe we could get together and write something for your next album.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really open to any kind of collaborative thing.
Really? Well, let's try something right now. How about if you come up with some lyrics, and I'll try to put it to music?
That'd be really groovy if you could.
All right, let's do it. We need some words. Just say the first profound thing that pops into your head. Just throw out some lyrics.
And then it just cuts to a clip of Michael Stipe just offhandedly saying,
we all have cell phones, so come on, let's get real.
Where did that come from? That's brilliant! Okay, let's see. We all have cell phones, so come on, let's get real.
So that's a cute little joke. So Al would show the clips from these interviews in concert in between the songs when he was doing costume changes. And on the 2007 tour, that was one of the clips he showed. And then at the end of the show for the encore, right before he would do Saga Begins and Yoda, he would come out and...
Or sometimes it was Albuquerque.
Yeah, yes, actually on that tour it was Albuquerque.
It was Albuquerque
so,
on that tour, yeah.
So he'd come back out, Ruben would do a little piano flourish, and Al would just start singing.
We all have cell phones, so come on, let's get real. We all have cell phones, so come on, let's get real.
And if you have a cell phone here tonight, I want you to stand up right now. Wave your cell phone and sing. We are.
Becomes the cell phone lighter thing.
Yeah. He would invite people to take out their cell phones and hold them like lighters, and he would make it this big epic, cell phones.
He would he would riff on it, yeah.
And then the band would transition into Albuquerque without a break in between. Just immediately into.
I have to wonder if Michael Stipe knows about any of that, and if so, what his reaction would be. I think he would really get a kick out of that whole thing.
You would think that he would have asked all the celebrities like he does with his parodies before he does.
Yeah, it is an extreme technicality. Lyrics by Michael Stipe, sort of.
Yeah, he got permission. I mean, he never released that on an album, of course, but he would get permission from the original artist for his parodies, but for like interviews on a cable special, actually he. In an Ask Al column on his website years and years ago, someone asked him about the legality of using these clips from these interviews, and he said they're a little sneaky about it. Like, they do have to get permission from these artists, but all they tell them is, yeah, we want to use footage from this interview in an MTV show.
Okay.
The short version is I like Al and I follow not quite everything he does because he does a lot and sometimes I can't keep track of it all.
It's impossible to keep track of it all.
When he is going to be on a show I watch anyway, I get very excited for it.
I am the guy who watches absolutely who follows absolutely everything, even though he does everything. So.
I do remember when it was announced that Al was going to be on Gravity Falls. I think it was not announced at first what character he would be playing, or at least I didn't see what character he would be playing at first. And this was around the time the mid-season break happened where Ford was revealed, but his voice hadn't been heard yet. And
wait, are you saying what I think you're going to say?
I don't know if it was public that it was going to be J.K. Simmons, but I had not heard that information. So there was a split second where I thought, is Al going to be the author?
We thought the same thing, Dave!
We believed it so intently. It was announced that he was going to be on the show. It was not announced who he was playing, and the author's brother. And we figured Alex is voicing Stanley, Alfred is voicing Stanford.
It would have been perfect.
Right, that was your rationale, and then mine was like, this is a guy dedicated his life to studying weirdness. Why not get the weird one himself to voice,
it's perfect.
That's his forte.
And by the way, Al also has a previous sort of connection to J.K. Simmons because...
The Whiplash video,
That's true!
Yeah, the Whiplash video. In 2015, the same year as this, Al made a video with College Humor where he edited himself into the famous Not My Tempo scene in Whiplash, only it's
That's true.
Simmons yelling at Al playing the accordion instead of Miles Teller playing drums.
Mm-hmm. Do you think you're out of tune?
Not really. I think I sound kind of awesome. I don't
There's no Mars bar down there. What are you looking at? Look up here. Look at me.
Actually, there is a Mars bar. I gotta keep them handy. Got this low blood sugar thing. Hey, what are you? Hey!
This was still a while before it was publicly announced that Al would be the lead on another Disney television cartoon.
That's right, Milo Murphy's Law.
Which, I actually have a story about that, too.
Please do.
Tony and I and some other friends of ours saw Al in concert about a month after this Gravity Falls episode aired. Then a little bit later, as we are leaving the theater, I look over towards the front of the auditorium, and I happen to see Phineas and Ferb creators Dan Povenmire and Swampy Marsh. And a little while earlier, they had retweeted a video I made about Phineas and Ferb.
Oh, wow.
So I went up and introduced myself to them, and they were very friendly.
That's great.
But at this point, there had already been the rumor that Al was going to be the lead of their new show, but it hadn't been confirmed yet. So seeing them at towards the front of a Weird Al concert, I was like, okay, I think we can be reasonably certain that Al is going to be the voice of Milo Murphy.
Yeah. It's a great show too.
Very cool.
So I guess I'll get into my history now. You see, way back when I was just a little bitty girl living in a box under the stairs of the basement of the house half a block down the street from Jerry's Bait Shop, you know the place. So I'm much younger than the rest of the panel. I was born in 99, so I was born right when Running with Scissors came out, and I feel like Weird Al is one of those things where, like Star Wars, it is one of the things that I feel like I was never not aware of culturally because it's kind of so ubiquitous and constantly being like referenced and talked about.
Is your mom a Weird Al fan?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, that makes sense.
So I grew up, with this constant mild awareness kind of just in the back of my head, but never really fully emerged into a Weird Al fan until, or a close personal friend of Al, until right around the time that Alpocalypse came out, 2011?
2011, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tony's like, I don't need to look this stuff up.
I know, that's why I'm asking.
Here's how much I don't need to look up that date particularly. I am in the Perform This Way video. Did you know that? Oh my god.
It's true.
I've never told you that.
No.
So for both White and Nerdy and Perform This Way, this is 2006 to 2011. By that point, like, the record labels were not pouring money into music videos anymore. There was just, the budgets for them had completely gone dry. And so they needed to cut costs whenever possible. So Al was like, well, what if we get free extras from my fan base who'd be willing to work for free? He would post like a blog for both those videos saying, hey, if you want to be extras in this video, first off, you have to be in Southern Cal. You have to be able to get yourself to LA on these dates and send us a picture. And if we like you, we'll put you in the video.
He sat down with his fans and just, Sweetie Pumpkin, do you want to join the Columbia Record Club?
I submitted my picture for the Perform This Way video, and that's how I got in, and I am one of the paparazzi taking the picture of, specifically in the shot where in the middle of the screen you see that Al as Lady Gaga, CGI face swapping abomination, and I am one of the photographers off to the left, frantically snapping pictures of them. And by the way, this was like 6 months after I had started doing Some Jerk with a Camera, and here I was in an Al video, literally playing Some Jerk with a Camera. It was perfect.
The paparazzi are the epitome of Some Jerks with Cameras.
Absolutely, of course they are, and so. I mean, it's not great. My camera's not flashing, unfortunately, which was kind of because that was another thing. Everyone had to bring their own cameras to the thing. And they couldn't just be like phones or whatever. You actually had to bring a physical camera.
Oh, right.
I didn't really have a camera. Well, I had a video camera, but I didn't have like a traditional. But my grandparents on my mom's side actually used to be professional photographers, and my mom still had some of their old cameras lying around. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be funny if I just brought the most not anachronistic, but like the most old timey, like camera from the 50s or something that I would be holding. And as a matter of fact, at one point, one of the PAs for the video when we were shooting it goes, so if any of your cameras have logos on them, we need to cover them up with duct tape. We can't have any logos in this video. And one of the other extras looked at my camera and says, I don't think you're going to need duct tape. That business has been out of business for 40 years.
But yeah, even then they were like, all right, take your meds, Grandpa.
Yeah, exactly. So there were 3 shots, basically, or 3 setups at least, where they had to get a bunch of extras in there. There was a shot early on in the video where he's singing On Red Carpets, Well, I'm Hard to Miss, where you see the paparazzi kind of off to the side. I was on set for that, but you don't actually see me on camera. I'm off screen in that one, but I was on set when they were doing it. Then there was the paparazzi shot where you actually see me, and then there's the shot over the line, hope you don't think it's cliche if I go nude today, where it's like the nude Lady Gaga Al with photographers all behind. For that shot, it was so weird. They had all us extras in a little holding room where we were just sitting around, and we'd already gotten that first shot later on in the video, and then the PA came in, counted us up, and said, okay, everyone but you two, and he pointed to me and another extra, you come with me. And I didn't want to make waves, I was just happy to be there, so So me and this other guy are just sitting in this room for a long time, and finally I just wander out and onto the set, and they're shooting the nude. I don't know why they didn't ask. I don't know why they capped us in that shot, but anyway, that's why I'm not in that shot of the nude. I'm only in the one shot where the Lady Gaga Al is wearing like the tentacles and the Taj Mahal thing on.
Amazing.
Was Al not there?
No, he was there. He was directing. Okay. He was the director of the video.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that he took over directing duties of his videos
and in fact,
after a while.
he had they had to get both shots of the body shots of the body model and shots of Al's face, right
in the same lighting. That makes sense.
Yeah. which meant that Al that Al had to have his face. Otherwise, he wasn't in costume, but his face was in full Lady Gaga makeup.
Yeah.
So, which is
that's amazing.
I think I tweeted because the song had already the song had already been released at that point because of the whole Lady Gaga permission kerfuffle. I don't know if you want to get into that, but the song had already been released, so I didn't think it was violating any, not any NDAs. I don't think I even signed, but I remember tweeting, there's only one thing better than being directed by Al Yankovic, and it's being directed by Al Yankovic while he's in full Lady Gaga makeup.
Absolutely.
So yeah, at one point, like, he was actually walking past the room where all us extras were, and the holding room, and he just briefly leans his head in while wearing the full Lady Gaga makeup and just goes, "What?" and then leaves and walks to the set. It was a great moment.
It was the album that song is on, Alpocalypse, was coming out right around the time that I went with my mom to the store and just browsing the CD section, and that one was out. So I believe at the same time I bought that, I also bought this 2-disc collection, the Essential Weird Al Yankovic, that had been released pretty recently around that time, I think.
that had come out just a couple years earlier, yeah.
Yeah, because it was every album up to Straight Outta Linwood, the previous one. And I believe handpicked by Al, what was on there.
Oh, yes, yeah. He had full control over that compilation.
Yeah, so that was, and it's a lot of the greatest hits, but it's also some deeper cuts, and that was... that got me through, many, many years. That was my whole introduction, because between that and the newest album, I had a pretty decent sample of his oeuvre. So I listened through all of those, and then over the years collected each individual album on a compact disc, which, for those who don't know, that's sort of a smaller version of a record, having MP3s on it physically. And so
it's an MP3 record?
Yeah, it is. It's actually pretty interesting. Okay. So I did that, and then
in the midst that thing that Robbie's song for Wendy was on? That's
a CD. Okay. Yeah.
I have a kind of a story about the Essential Weird Al Yankovic compilation.
What's up?
While Al was compiling that, he knew he wanted one polka medley on it, just to represent polka medleys as a whole. And he wasn't sure whether he wanted it to be Polkas on 45 from his In 3D album, or Polka Your Eyes Out from Off the Deep End.
I kind of wish it had been that one.
Well, here's the thing. He actually opened this up to his Twitter followers at the time. This was 2009, so it was before Twitter was a complete cesspool.
Sure.
And I think it was also before Twitter had polls. So he just asked his fans, like, what do you guys think? Do you think I should use this polka? And my response to him was, well, they're both great, but, the whole point of a polka medley is that it captures, the great music of its era, and Polkas on 45 has way more songs that have stood the test of time.
It's like true.
It's got the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and, and the Who and Devo and all these classic things. And Polka Your Eyes Out is much more topical to the early 90s. It's got
hits of the time,
Motley Crue and Belle Biv DeVoe and a bunch of songs that, that people have forgotten, even though it is a great medley.
No, you're right. And that's a good point.
So later on, when the compilation comes out, Al writes a whole blog post about it saying, I asked people on Twitter which polka I should use. More people actually said Polka Your Eyes Out, but the people who advocated for Polkas on 45, I thought, had better arguments.
Yeah.
It's not a democracy, it's art.
That was you, Tony.
I'd like to think mine was one of the arguments that swayed him. I'd like to think that.
I like that.
Polkas on 45 was my favorite for a very long time, because I don't know music. So I'm like, oh, these are the songs that my parents like. I know these ones.
Right, that was the same for me, more or less.
It has since strongly become Polka Power because through Polka Power...
Chumbawamba.
Yeah, Tub Thumping quickly became one of my favorite songs of all time. Not my favorite song of all time. That honor goes to I Pity the Fool by Molly Lewis.
So that essential Weird Al album was where a lot of like my music understanding came from as like an 11/12-year-old. And then, unfortunately at that point, his record contract was about to end, so I only had like one new album drop left to experience in the moment, Mandatory Fun, but that was still an awesome experience. That's summer of 2014, where it was like that week. Was it every day of a week, or was it just every week he was releasing a video?
Yeah, in 2014, it was 8 days, so it was like Sunday to Sunday.
It was like Hanukkah.
It was a miracle. Exactly. It was a Weird Al miracle. So that was the,
Yeah, every day, Al made 8 music videos for Mandatory Fun, and he just released one a day for 8 days
that was
straight.
That was a huge summer for me, because that was summer 2014 when Mandatory Fun was coming out. Gravity Falls Season 2 was premiering in August, so that was a fantastic time. And then, not long after, maybe the following year, my mom and I went to our first Weird Al concert, the Mandatory World Tour.
Very cool.
And then, since then, we've been to 2 other ones, the Stripped Down Self-Indulgent Vanity Tour and the Strings Attached with the orchestra. Both of those are fantastic, but complete opposites, which I love.
Yep.
And I love that he's just doing what he wants to do. As sad as I was that I won't get to experience, album drops in the way that people have over the generations, I like that he's just kind of doing his own stuff in the pace and time that he feels like doing. Because he's not really straight up retired, but he's just like, he's no longer at the mercy of a particular contract. He can be his own artist. And I think that's the art aspect of him is, I think, the underrated part and the part that appeals to me more. Because I know, Charlie, you've said specifically Weird Al is your second favorite comedy musician.
Yes, after Molly Lewis.
Yeah. I wonder if that'll come back into play. Probably not. But... yeah, with Al, for me, it's that, like, yes, he is obviously a comedy musician, a novelty musician, but, I mean, the definition of a novelty is that it does not really last, and I think he's very much the opposite of that.
He has mastered genres that have been invented since he started making music.
Exactly.
He's outlasted most of the people he's parodied.
Exactly.
There are several instances where, like, Al's music video of a parody has more views on YouTube now than the original song. Like, I know that's the case with I Lost on Jeopardy, because the original song, Jeopardy by Greg Kihn, has kind of been forgotten, but Al's parody lives on.
Yeah, because I was never really that aware of music in general as a kid, and so he was my gateway to a lot of other songs and other, like, musical genres, and I don't even know if I consider him a comedy musician in my mind, because it's not that it's not funny to me. It is obviously funny, like a lot of the humor works, but I never really laugh like aloud. I can think of exactly one time that I have audibly laughed at a Weird Al song, and it's the song Traffic Jam when he goes, "There's a motorcycle zooming by me, watch what happens when I open my door."
I distinctly remember the 2 I audibly laughed the first time I heard were Trigger Happy.
Oh, that one's not funny anymore.
Well, no. But it was very funny when I heard it for the first time.
It depends on your tolerance for very dark humor.
That's true.
And Generic Blues, because...
Generic Blues is a classic.
The way blues works is he has to repeat the setup several times before we get to the punchline.
Right.
So we have to, like, wait for it, and that comedic timing just hits me.
Yeah, and I like, my brain can understand that is comedy, but I really think that he's a genuine musician, He's genuinely musically gifted.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, yeah, he plays the piano on most of his tracks unless it's a guest, and, like, he's a legitimately good pianist.
And the way that they replicate the styles.
Al is a stickler for authenticity. Like, everything has to sound exactly like it did on the original recording.
For the style pastiches and the parodies, yeah.
Yeah, for the style parodies, but also for the straight up parodies, he insists it has to sound exactly like the original. And if you listen to American Pie, in the first verse and in kind of the last verse, I don't know if Don McLean is playing piano, but if it's him and another piano player just kind of riffing a little as Don sings the lyrics, and the piano has a very improvisational feel to it. Al wanted Ruben to replicate that exactly, like what the piano player was improvising to an absolute T. And Ruben didn't quite get it. He did, at least at first. And when they got into the studio and they started doing it, and Ruben wasn't doing it exactly. He was kind of taking a similarly, improvisational feel to the material. And I was like, no, I don't want you to do that. I want you to do it exactly. Go home and learn it. And the rest of the band did something else. And then the next day, Ruben came back and he still hadn't quite learned it. And Al had to send him home again. It was Al's just a perfectionist with that kind of stuff.
I mean, it definitely shows. That's why most people who do parody songs on the internet just get the original track because they have a standard of it sounding as good as Weird Al's.
I don't even consider, in my mind, it's just good music. Like, when I go to play Weird Al, it's like, I'm not looking to laugh. I'm just looking to, like, enjoy a song because it's all good music. I'm thinking about, there was a Vine that he made where it was, like, taking an image of birds on a wire and making that into music. Like, what if that was music notes? And it's like... He's very musically talented.
That was brilliant.
Yeah, he's just a musical genius, I think, can just be accepted.
Yeah.
One of my favorite, my favorite Al song is Everything You Know Is Wrong, but one of my, I would say, top 5 is a song on Mandatory Fun called Mission Statement.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the big joke of Mission Statement is that it's a style parody of Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, but where all the lyrics, instead of like being, hippie peace and love mantras, they're all
corporate jargon.
Business speak, like, we must all efficiently operationalize our strategies.
And my mom loves that one specifically because she specifically hates the term evidence-based.
Yeah.
I think that one's in there somewhere.
Yeah, and the thing is, there's no jokes along the way in the song. Every lyric is just kind of a new bit of corporate jargon, and there's no attempts at, like, gags or anything. It's just kind of this...
It exists.
This concept of a song, and the reason I love it so much is because, first of all, it's just a great song musically. It has such a great vibe to it, but also, even though there's no jokes along the way, the kind of greater joke of the whole piece is so fucking brilliant and kind of brutal when you think about it. It's like, because you realize this is the story of the boomers. This is what happened to them.
It's a yuppie. Yeah.
They took their hippie peace and love aesthetics and applied it to this absolutely cold, soulless, jargon just for the sake of capitalism.
Bought them a condo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's such a kind of devastating parody. It's a devastating satire in its own way.
And my favorite, definitely Genius in France, incorporating all of the Frank Zappa.
Genius in France is great. The big, massive 9-minute Frank Zappa homage. We actually got Frank Zappa's son, Dweezil, to play a guitar solo on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's one joke that is repeated throughout the song, but it's done so well. And that's the thing. It's like you said about Mission Statement. It's kind of understated. It just kind of is. It's not really like, hey, everybody, this is a joke. Like, it's more like, this is a song that is also funny.
For me, my favorite is Albuquerque. It has had so much influence on my writing. I'm not sure why to make a parody of Dick's Automotive. I don't know if Dick's Automotive got airplay when that album came out.
I mean that was a style for the style parodies. They don't need to be on stuff that's popular. They can just be on stuff Al likes.
Because it says it's listed as a style parody of the Rugburns on the album, but it is just a style parody of their song Dick's Automotive.
Pretty much, yeah.
But Albuquerque, I just love all of the turns the story takes. Like, I wouldn't have thought of most of that.
Al said when he was writing Albuquerque, all that stuff, as I understand it, is the first draft. Like, originally, he just wrote this incredibly long, incredibly stupid first draft, which just went on forever and had absolutely no point to it.
It does have a point.
It has a point.
The point is, I hate sauerkraut!
That's all I'm really trying to say. And he was convinced like no one would like it. He was doing the song basically as an epic troll. Like it would be this 11-minute behemoth monstrosity that no one would be able to make it all the way through.
Everyone skips it.
And everyone ends up skipping it. And instead it became his biggest fan favorite ever.
Yeah. Oh, and also when I that reminds me, speaking of long meandering songs, when I went to the stripped down Vanity tour, I had a sign that said Twine Ball or Bust.
Ah, nice.
But I think I smelled pretty good.
In 99, when Al went on the Running with Scissors tour, touring with Scissors, they actually did play a show in Albuquerque.
Oh.
And Al knew, okay, everyone's gonna expect me. And he didn't do Albuquerque on that tour. That was before he had started performing it live, really. But he's like, well, I got the Albuquerque song on the album. It's already starting to become a bit of a fan favorite. It's the Albuquerque show. Everyone's going to want me to play Albuquerque. So what he did was, after he did the main show and the main encore of Saga Vegans and Yoda, he spent like 45 minutes trolling the audience and saying things like, so this is a song we've never performed live before, but we're going to do it for you. And then the band would launch into like Close to You by the Carpenters or, Wipeout played in 4 different chords all at the same time.
That reminds me of the Vanity tour also, because at the end of every show, he did a cover.
Yes. Some of the stuff that he originally did at that 99 Albuquerque show, eventually he also did on the 2018 Vanity tour.
I love the cover of Squeezebox by The Who that goes, there's not even any accordion on the track!
Like God intended.
And them doing the covers is another thing that just makes me see them, like, he's just a musician. Like, he is just a talented musician.
He and his band, they're just fantastic musicians where all the songs happen to be funny in nature.
Absolutely. At the one I saw, they did Jenny. They did 8675309, and that was a great one to see live because he's just so good. I love him so much, and like, so obviously whenever he was in a cartoon, I would follow up on that. And at this point, he had been in a lot.
Yeah, he was doing a lot of voice work by the time this episode aired.
I have a friend who was 18 who said Weird Al, I love Weird Al, but I love all nerdy sounding voice actors. And I'm like, well, Weird Al's not primarily and then I thought about it. I'm like, you're 18.
Yeah.
So when Weird Al released his last album, you were in elementary school. Oh my God.
Yeah, this was right around the era when Al was doing a ton of cartoon voice work. The same year his Gravity Falls episode first aired, he was also in Teen Titans Go and also Wander Over Yonder and Uncle Grandpa, where he played a robot named Weird Pal.
And so that about wraps us up for this episode of the Weird Alphabet.
Wait, Ella. Wrong podcast.
Oh, we're a Gravity Falls
I believe we actually just watched an episode of Gravity Falls that has Weird... Okay.
I never got a chance to be on Weird Alphabet, so if I'm going to collect all the Pipe Dream podcasts, we needed to do that diversion.
For your Infinity Gauntlet. Yeah. All right, so then why don't we get into something a little more relevant to this specific episode?
Yeah, here's my transitional question. What is all of your experience with Dungeons and Dragons?
I have shockingly little experience with Dungeons and Dragons, and it's probably the least on-brand thing about me, is that
Same here.
I have not played Dungeons and Dragons. Part of it is just growing up, I did not live very close to any of my friends who would be interested in such a thing. Although tying it into Gravity Falls, I did live down the street from Dana Terrace's cousin.
Oh, wow.
So I knew her a little bit when we were kids, but I do not think she would remember me. But yeah, I did not live close to friends, especially not friends who were nerdy enough to play Dungeons and Dragons, so I just never really had opportunity to play it growing up.
Yeah.
And I just never got around to playing it in adulthood, despite the fact that now I do have friends who play it. But like, I loved... I was a big Tolkien fan as a kid. I read Lord of the Rings when I was too young to understand it. So everything about me screams someone who would be into Dungeons and Dragons.
No, I mean, we've expressed that you and I have basically just all the same interests. So yeah, I remember when I moved towns, and so there was no record on what my previous book report was on the year before. I did that as an excuse to do The Hobbit 2 years in a row. Wow, I just read it.
That's amazing.
Wow, that was fantastic. I've never read that before.
That's a hell of a grift. I respect it.
Yeah.
Basically all of my friends are into D&D in some capacity. And, at this point, like, I've made a character sheet or two. I've done some, like, brief little excursions in the game. I feel like at some point I will just straight up join a campaign, but for a long time it was like, this is the one, like, nerd thing that I missed the boat on, was D&D.
Yeah, I'm in the same missed boat where
You're treading water with me, because we both missed the boat.
I've never played D&D either. It always just seemed so obtuse to me. Like the scene in this episode where Dipper starts rattling off the rules of this thing, and you just see Mabel's face turn from a smile to a frown.
The animation
gradually.
is fantastic.
The rules are simple. First, you roll a 38-sided die to determine the level of each player's statistical analysis power orb. These orbs relate directly to the amount of quadrants that your team has dominion over, which is inverse to the anti-quadrants in your quadrant satchel.
This is like Homework the Game.
That was so cathartic, especially the first time I saw this, because I was like, yes, that's me. That's why I never got into this shit.
So I was in a campaign that has since ended, but that was 5th edition, which is way less. It's way more user friendly, so I don't have that Mabel experience. But the people who worked on this show are older than me. The first draft, written by Matt Chapman, the story that led to the experiences seen in the episode is that he had a best friend in like elementary school, middle school, whose older brother played D&D a lot. So when he would go to visit the Chapmans, he would say, can I bring the books? Can I bring the playbooks? It's like, sure. So him and Matt would hang out and they would write a character sheet, and then they would open the rule book and be like, do any of these words mean anything to you in this order? And they're like, no. So Matt estimates through his childhood, he has made 10 Dungeons and Dragons characters and not even played for 1 second. And then Alex Hirsch, who did a lot of the rewrites, a lot of Stan's jokes about D&D were Alex's rewrites.
The charisma as a fantasy power.
Yes, that's an Alex line.
Yeah.
Buttress.
And so Alex, when he was working on Flapjack, Pat McHale and Pendleton Ward, while working on the show, had a regular weekly D&D night. So they invited Alex to one. And he was like, well, I've never played before, so what are the rules? And it's like, no, there are no rules. You could just do anything you want. And then when Over the Garden Wall creator, Pat McHale, and Adventure Time creator, Pendleton Ward, spent an entire hour arguing how many dogs of war you're allowed to have, Alex is like, all right, I did not come in at the right time for any of this to make sense to me.
Yeah, it's not really accessible. I feel like I, for a long time, was in the same place that Matt was, where, like, I love making characters, you know, but then when it came time to implement it, I'm like, I don't know, I'd just rather write a story, you know, I'd just rather write something rather than play it.
It is, I've described what we do in, the Driftwood Saga, which is our improv over the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, very, very similar to how a D&D campaign goes.
The thing I like in theory about Dungeons & Dragons is when I am writing a story and I get stuck, I wish I could just roll a die and it would tell me what happens next.
That's why I have a randomizer on my podcast. It saves me the trouble of deciding what each episode's topic should be. Just have a randomizer or occasionally a guest tell me what we're covering. It's like that part of the job's covered.
That's why we have an infinity-sided smart house to tell us what to watch.
Yeah, maybe the smart house will generate Probabilitor the Annoying. Weird Al's character from this episode.
Well, if it gives us this episode, it will.
Well, I mean, this was going to be my guest choice, but now I have to choose a different one, and it's going to take me so long to pick
finally going to be your
one.
guest choice. No, but I love, we just went on an entire, I feel like tirade is an appropriate word to use, about how much we all love Weird Al, but this character in particular is fantastic. There's so many line reads that I could pick out, but I think my favorite line of his has to be,
come on, this game was a lot of fun. I had my mom pack me a lunch. Ew, apple slices. I'll eat you last.
And granted, I feel like it isn't my favorite line read. That would probably have to be,
what? My butt isn't part of this particular equation?
That's my favorite line in this.
But the apple slices line hits on a deeper level, because it's like, that feels like such a kid thing where, like, psychologically you're like, oh, You are the worst food of this bunch, therefore I will punish you by eating you last.
That line was also from Alex's rewrites, because he did not play Dungeons & Dragons with friends growing up, but he did play Pokemon card. He did regularly meet up with friends to play Pokemon, the trading card game. So the apple slice is based on personal experience.
Yeah, and it's also kind of backwards to how I was, because if I was like, oh, there's a food here that I really like, I'm going to save that one for the last, and I'll eat the thing I don't like first. But I just love, he's so good.
That's how I always view it. It's like after you're done with your meal, you're left with the aftertaste of the last thing you ate. So
yeah, leave it on a high note.
So save your favorite thing for
last. But
last.
I love what it kind of says about his character, that he's so, like, impulsive and childish, that he's like, oh, no, I'm gonna eat the thing that I want the most. I'm eating the cupcake first. So he's great. The hot elf that accompanies his party is fantastic as well.
Yeah, so his posse with him are two different takes on Lord of the Rings, because the hot elf is clearly supposed to be Orlando Bloom as Legolas in the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies. By the way, Orlando Bloom is my favorite character I've ever played. driftwoodsaga.card.co. The link is in the description. And Matt Chapman is my favorite actor, and he's doing a stereotypically effeminate voice, which I know is a descriptor that can be ascribed to my voice. So I'm like, why am I in this one? And then
because you're a hot elf.
Yeah, you are.
Clearly.
Thank you. And then the goblin that accompanies him is designed after the goblins from the Rankin Bass Hobbit.
I made a video last year about the animated Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies as part of a Tolkien adaptation month I was doing, which I am bringing back later this year, and I guess I legally have to review the intro to this very podcast episode, because that counts as a Tolkien adaptation.
Oh yeah, you're right. You do.
And Ella and I asked each other once, just for fun, what is your favorite non-Disney animated movie? And since Disney has bought so many things,
it's hard. It's a hard question.
A really difficult question. And I arrived actually at The Hobbit 77. I watched that all the time. I had a birthday party where I was like, come over, we'll watch The Hobbit 77.
I know my answer to that. The Iron Giant.
That's a good one.
I think that's the best non-Disney animated movie ever.
I love your joke in that video where you say that because the goblins' singing voices are Thurl Ravenscroft, but their speaking voices are these, stereotypically that their voices just get cartoonishly smooth when they start singing. So I think Kevin Michael Richardson was the choice to walk that line.
He can do both.
It's like Wheezy in Toy Story 2 suddenly sounding like Robert Goulet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Also, that video, when you posted the isolated just The Hobbit 77 portion from that video, was like maybe 2 months after I figured out that it's probably my favorite non-Disney animated movie.
So it seems like after that film was a success, Rankin Bass went all in on the fantasy, right?
Yeah,
because then they did
because The Last Unicorn. We'll talk more about that later.
Oh yeah.
And they had a movie that no one knows about called Flight of the Dragons in 1982. And when Alex asked Jason Ritter, "Do you have any personal experience with Dungeons and Dragons that you can kind of tap into for this episode?" He's like, "Oh, I loved it. It always makes me think of my favorite movie my dad is in, because John Ritter voices the human character Peter in Flight of the Dragons." And he's like, and no one knows about it. So just for Jason Ritter, and only for Jason Ritter, when Ford and Dipper are planning the campaign, you can see the only clear words written down are Smeargle, Omadon, and Gorbash, which are the names of the dragons from Flight of the Dragons.
Nice. Oh, it's really sweet of them to put that in there. We also get a kind of a lore drop. So, we know that Stanford has been in other dimensions, that there is a multiverse going on. And so when Probabilitor shows up via the infinity-sided die, he calls them the mortals of Dimension 46'/\. So apparently that is what this universe is labeled in the grander scheme of the multiverse.
It drove me nuts in Spider-Man Far From Home when they call the dimension 616. I'm like, then what's
Right.
the comic one called?
Well, Mysterio was lying. That's your answer.
And then
to
when I
that.
found out Mysterio was lying, I like relaxed. I was like, okay, cool, cool. So the movie
I can
dimension has
relax.
a different name.
Yeah.
I don't have to get mad at Sony this time.
Speaking of the Spider-Man films, this is the first time we see J.K. Simmons as Ford doing things.
Right, yeah. So kind of to get more into the, that's kind of the Monster of the Week stuff of this episode. To get into the more grounded stuff, well, this really is the first return to that Monster of the Week structure since Not What He Seems.
In the commentary, Matt says he had so much fun writing it, and it reminded him of how much fun writing season 1 was.
Exactly.
And I thought in that moment, oh yeah, wait, continuity is really stressful to write. All of the fans prefer the deep lore stuff, but I imagine the writers cannot have that experience.
And it was also emotionally exhausting to watch, I mean, intentionally. But it's nice to have this, and, I feel like this was a late realization for me, because this wasn't one that I had rewatched that often, but the time I had watched this before this podcast on a rewatch is kind of where I realized this is one of the best episodes. This is one of my favorites. It packs a lot into its runtime. It packs a lot of jokes, a lot of character stuff, and a lot of lore and kind of teases for what is to come for these characters.
As well as me piecing together, hang on, the Weird Al episode, the one where Matt gets to write a Coach Z styled 90s hip hop, the one with Orlando Bloom, and the one where Navi dies. Those are all the same episode?
That's right, yeah. There's the Hey Look Listen fairy from Legend of Zelda.
Yes, which Matt says that recording a pained Hey Look Listen was his favorite record for the entire series.
It does pack a lot of pop culture references that aren't all to the same thing, but none of them feel superfluous.
Exactly.
Right.
Absolutely.
And sorry, I gotta talk about Diggity Dungeons and all that.
Yes, please do.
Man, this game is boring.
You dare challenge probabilitism?
I'll flip the cat back and roll the dice. Don't step to the wizard, cause the wizard.
Too many dungeons and all that. Updated for the non-double deuce. Available wherever dope games are sold. Peace.
That is my single favorite moment in all of Gravity Falls. It is just everything about it, from the clothes they're wearing to the like VHS.
Yeah, well, the one doing the
degradation on
MC Hammer dance is perfect. That's the great.
You dare challenge probabilitism? Like as
Kevin Michael Richardson as probabilitism.
And apparently Jeff Bennett as the rapper?
Apparently that's Jeff Bennett rapping.
I am exactly the right age to have been absolutely bombarded by all that bullshit back in the 90s.
By
like,
executives being like, is this what you think is cool, Tony? And you being like, no, it's not. I already told you.
Yeah, exactly.
It is the best Poochie style joke since the Poochie episode.
Yes.
I mean, Josh Weinstein.
Yep, Josh Weinstein was showrunner when that happened.
Oh, yeah. And especially to see a joke at that aesthetic expense coming from Disney, who was one of the biggest offenders in trying to shove that down our throat.
And then it cut to commercial break and you heard, dance break!
Yeah. It is similar to how they let, let them
right.
do several times when they are also
Disney had some pop star they were highlighting at that point. It doesn't matter. I don't care.
You've both spoken before on the show about how Alex Hirsch growing up didn't really like the shows that were aimed at his own age demographic. Yeah. So I feel like Dipper saying that the 90s must have been a dark time was partly...
his outlet.
Was Alex going back and seeing the shows he chose not to watch because he was watching Simpsons and being like, ooh, I dodged a bullet?
He said in a Reddit AMA that the antithesis of how to write Dipper was the nerd character from the BK Kids Club.
Whose name is IQ.
Who would always go, according to my calculations.
We get, in a Matt Chapman written scene, the phrase double deuce. Now, this is not a reference to Stinko Man's power. In fact, both are a reference to a song on a rap album that Matt made with his friends in 2000, where...
That was his booty rap career.
Yes, they had a booty rap group called 3D. I don't know how they recorded these. I'm guessing they actually rented out a studio space. But you can hear one of the 3D tracks in the luau, a clean version of Poot Slap, which it's hard to make it clean, that being the name.
This is also the second time Matt has written about something being revamped for the 90s, so much more exciting.
Right.
That's true. The Diggity Dungeons and all that is Xerxley Forks.
It's one of the few times Gravity Falls ever did basically a Family Guy style cutaway gag.
They do a bunch in the first episode.
But even that was when they were finding their footing. I can excuse that.
Yeah, they do some there, but I love that after the first episode, they only save it for when they've got absolute cream of the crop fried gold, like Diggity Dungeons and all that.
I feel like Dipper's disgust at the 90s there is partly Alex just yelling to everyone else his age, why are you nostalgic for all this?
I mean, yeah, they do the same thing in Inside Job.
It is a brain worm that makes adults regress into children who argue about Ghostbusters while the world burns.
Hey, don't say things about Ghostbusters you can't take back.
Ghostbusters?
Don't.
Is f***ing...
Don't you dare!
Stupid!
Oh! Why do you like Space Jam?
Exactly.
I am so fascinated by the question of why Space Jam that I have accidentally become the world's foremost expert on Space Jam. Just out of wondering, why was this movie made? Why was it greenlit? Why was it finished? And why did people go see it? Because that keeps me awake at night.
What I really love about Diggity Dungeons and all that is that it is not just it's a great pop culture joke, but it also is like a great character joke and a character moment because it's Dipper and Ford bonding over having missed that because Dipper was born after and Ford was stuck between dimensions during that time. And they really do jump into this new status quo in this episode, showing how Stanford's arrival and presence is shaking up the dynamic of the Pines family and also physically shaking up the entire town. It got flipped upside down by the gravity anomalies and they're kind of rebuilding. And I was very concerned about that going into this episode because the last time we saw Waddles was not what he seems when the agents burst into the house. And then the town, got flipped, turned upside down, as it were. And I was terrified that something happened to Waddles. Like, I know they wouldn't realistically do that on this show, but I just wanted proof that he was okay. And then Tale of Two Stands aired and Waddles isn't in that episode, and I was really worried.
Aww.
And then...
What about Waddles?
And then this episode starts and we see Waddles chilling on the easy chair and he's safe, he's okay. Yay! And so I took to Tumblr and I posted that screenshot with an audio clip of Hallelujah! Hallelujah! And I love the drawing of him lounging is very human-like. It's a very good pose for him. So yeah, I mean that was the biggest revelation for me in this episode. I guess there's also some guy Stanford doing stuff in this episode. We first see him fighting the Cycloptopus, kind of a mini Cthulhu, with these really cool electro gloves.
And then he smiles at the camera after he catches it.
Yeah. I remember there were a lot of cosplays that incorporated those because, if you're going to cosplay Stanford, you need 6 fingers. The easiest way to do that is with gloves with a fake extra finger.
Sure.
So a lot of them built those gloves, and that is a really cool thing. I'll have to find some examples.
I remember at this point, I was checking Tumblr at every commercial break to see people's thoughts on the episode just
as
thus
it was
far
happening,
without incomplete information. And so many people screen cap the scene where he just rushes into the living room, beats up Cthulhu, smiles, and then leaves as, oh, so he's just Rick.
A little bit.
Less of an asshole, though. I'm not saying Ford's not an asshole. I'm just saying.
Yeah. That's fair. So in line with people screenshotting Ford at every opportunity, like with Grunkle Stan when he started beating up zombies and became Hunkle Stan, I think a lot of people were attracted to Ford. And I didn't get it until rewatching this episode and seeing the shot where he is manipulating the 38-sided die with all 6 of his fingers. And I was like, oh, I get it. So there's a moment when he's doing that he says they're playing DD and MD, and he goes,
all right, you enter the chamber. Princess Unattainable beckons you.
And that face that he makes became a big meme. It's a very silly looking face.
Unattainable is such a good joke.
Yes.
Well, we were all still going nuts from the fact that everyone on a studio signed off on unobtainium.
Right.
That's also true. Yeah, that was only a few years before at this point.
A few years after that movie came out, guest star of this episode, Weird Al, tweeted something to the effect of, I'm sorry, I just can't get past it. Unobtainium? Never shoot your first draft.
I'm really impressed with how this episode fits in, like, all of the character stuff that it does, along with all of the jokes and all of the, like, magical sort of set pieces, to the point that I always get confused when in my mind, this is another, like, extended length episode, like A Tale of Two Stands, but this is the normal 22 minutes, and that's kind of wild to me.
The podcast, like, betrays that.
That is also, yeah, that is very true. But when Dipper is all alone because he's got no one to play Dungeons and More Dungeons with because Stan has forbidden him from talking to Ford, he's playing right out the side of the Mystery Shack's porch, and when he crawls underneath to get the die, there's a message that reads, "Seuss was here. Oh man, I think I'm stuck." And that's right before he falls into the basement and starts bonding with Ford, which is, like, again, I don't really know how they managed to do all of that, because they do all this D&D stuff and all of this Ford and Dipper bonding, and there's this great moment where Dipper is preparing a campaign for Ford, and Mabel is kind of just catching up with him like,
"You're spending a lot of time with old Fordsy lately, huh?"
You have no idea. I knew the author must be cool, but he's better than I imagined. And he doesn't make fun of me all the time, the way you and Grunkle Stan do.
Give him time. Hey-o! Nah, you got me. You got me.
There's this very quiet moment where she is worried about the future of their relationship as they set up at the end of the previous episode, and it's not wrapped up at the end here. It's kind of still a lingering thing, and it's really impressive to me that they're able to serialize emotional arcs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because they have not really... I mean, there's the stuff in Summerween about, like, adolescence versus adulthood and how turning 13 is in the dead center. And they reflect on that in other episodes, but it's never in, like, this way of, this is how this character feels at the end of the episode. That's how they feel at the beginning of the next episode.
That's correct. Because in Summerween, it's more or less, it feels like there's a bow on it. It feels like they wrap it up and resolve. But here, the writer's instinct is to resolve, but they very visibly do not do that with this moment.
I wonder if part of that, because obviously the reason you want to resolve at the end of every episode is because you don't know what order Disney will air these in.
Right.
Or rerun. A lot of people first watch shows through reruns. That's just a grab bag. But I wonder, because both myself and Kyle said that we watched the show the first time on Amazon Prime. I wonder, as well as Disney was heavily promoting the Go website where you could watch live TV or any episode of a show. So I wonder if that change in the story structure was in response to streaming becoming a more major way.
Maybe. I also think they just stopped caring about what Disney wanted.
That is also... No. Yeah. Well, stopped. Implying...
They kind of care. I mean, yeah.
I mean, it's funny because you could argue that Disney Television invented the streaming age with Lost.
Yeah, you could, I suppose.
But why would you?
Was Lost ABC?
It was ABC, yeah.
Lost was on ABC, and basically Hulu came about at just the right time where, like, people really didn't want to miss a single episode of Lost.
Disney has a whole thing about... I mean, this is true of most networks at the time, where it's like the 52-episode rule, where we only need to get to a certain point, and then we can can the show and rerun randomly for every week for a year and just do that every year, and that's fine.
I hate Disney so much. That's gonna come up on this podcast a lot.
It's the reason that Wander Over Yonder was given very slim opportunities to have a serialized story in their second season, and I think in the same way that having like a serialized plot is hard to do, having serialized emotional through lines is hard, because not even in a network mandate sense, but in just a writer instinct sense, it's weird to have to leave something open. but it is done really effectively, especially visually when she turns over in bed and Dipper is, off doing his own thing. And it's that fear of separation and non-amicable separation that is kind of flaring up for Mabel.
I think one of the things that makes it work is that they resolve the immediate issue by the end of the episode.
They resolve the Stan not wanting Dipper to talk with Ford and all that sort of stuff.
They resolve this specific instance of the conflict between all the members of the family without addressing the larger sources of conflict.
And that's part of why I love it so much, is because, that's kind of how life works. You treat the symptoms of something, but you don't really get down into it. And that's what makes it work as a standalone thing, that we can watch it and call it a day and, be like, okay, that was a great episode. We don't feel the need to watch the rest, but we can see where it leads into the rest. And that's, I think, just serialization done pitch perfectly. Absolutely. They even managed to squeeze in an entire meta joke with the Duck-tective season finale is happening amongst all of this.
Oh, yes.
So Stan and Mabel and Grenda are gearing up to watch it while Dipper and Ford are playing their game. And I love that Stan gets all dressed up to watch. He changes his out. He has a little pocket square and a bow tie instead of his usual tie. He's looking good.
And I love Stan's line about,
I'll have you know that Duck-tective has a big mystery element and a lot of humor that goes over kids' heads.
Oh yeah, which is exactly how I sold Gravity Falls to so many people in my life.
Yep.
We're starting to reach a place with children's media where I don't have to do that anymore, which is good because I don't want to.
Yeah.
I'm the only one person I know who hasn't watched Encanto, and everyone's like, oh, you haven't watched it yet? I'm like, see, this is how we should be with cartoons. Yes,
yeah,
I
it's
agree.
just another type of media. It's fine. You hear that, Academy? It's an equal type of media.
It's almost as though rich people are out of touch or something.
No, it's the children who are wrong. We're also getting to the point in this show where it's been long enough that the writers' awareness of the fandom can now be shown in their writing. And that is super clear when Duck-tective is revealed to have a secret twin brother who is apparently voiced by Matt Chapman. I did not know that.
Or Duck-tective is weirdly voiced by Matt in this episode, and the twin is voiced by Alex, who normally voices Duck-tective. It's unclear, but it's the two of them quacking at each other.
Maybe they were setting up for the reveal that the Duck-tective in the hospital bed is the twin, and the real Duck-tective is wearing the goatee right now.
Okay.
Oh, don't act so shocked.
You had a twin brother all along? That's the big twist we were waiting for?
So we've talked ad nauseum on this podcast about how the Stan brother theory was inescapable, and Ella and I couldn't stand it.
So it was so satisfying to hear Seuss just go,
I predicted that a year ago.
Because we're like, yes, Seuss would be the people who wouldn't shut up about the Stan twin theory to Ella and I.
No, dude, I'm telling you, it's so obvious. Look at Duck-tective's license plate.
Did you see the license plate, though?
It must have been so insufferable when they were proven right.
Now, granted, they earned the bragging rights.
Sure.
Dude, Duckley is totally real, I'm telling you. Duckley is gonna get confirmed in this episode. I think that in the part of the episode that we see, they do something similar to what they did in one of the shorts, where when Duck-tective's brother walks through the door, outside the door you can see studio lights, you can see the equipment that they're using to film off the set. And Steven Universe actually has a similar kind of show within the show that they project the fandom onto, where Steven's favorite cartoon is Crying Breakfast Friends,
which are about small cartoon characters that cry a lot.
And a lot of the times they will do things that are mirroring the plots of episodes, and there's a whole short where Steven films a reaction video to an episode, and the show says, created by Samantha Pepper, Rebecca Sugar.
Instead of Rebecca Sugar, yeah.
And then at the end, he goes
I can't wait for the next episode. Whenever that is, am I right?
That begs the question, who created Duck-tective?
It's gotta be Alan
Hertz.
Alan Hertz, yeah.
They should do, a big crossover event between all these shows within shows.
Well, Ella and I actually... We had a series of Steven Universe Gravity Falls crossover videos, and we had an episode where they watched the episode where one of the Crying Breakfast Friends gets a job at Scotland Yard and then immediately gets eaten by Duck-tective.
Yes, specifically, the rule should be it has to be shows within shows where where
a meta commentary.
Where the existence of this show is a vessel for meta commentary.
So Itchy and Scratchy?
Itchy and Scratchy, yeah, that's kind of the original.
That's exactly what I was about to say. This all goes back to Itchy and Scratchy.
Itchy and Scratchy counts. All My Circuits counts.
Yes, All My Circuits.
On the subject, actually, of just like sort of meta jokes like that, there are some all-timer trademark skirtings in this episode.
Absolutely. Cheese boodles?
Cheese boodles.
Cheese boodles.
Calling them up and being like, hey, are we allowed to say cheese boodles? They're like, whatever. I don't have time
Knock
for this.
yourself out, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, a D could be changed into a B so easily. You just got greedy.
And I love that the trademark-free way of doing Dungeons & Dragons is just to get rid of one of the words and
add another
triple the
dungeon.
other word.
Yeah.
The Ballway Games, which was a parody of a pinball manufacturer in the pinball segment, is now just on the side of the board game because it doesn't matter.
Much like Vid Electrics moving into Board Electrics,
Absolutely.
Ballway Games has moved on to board games.
Or Nintendo moving from card games to video games.
You're
That's
right.
true.
You are right.
So the end of this episode, we get another lore drop that Stanford has dismantled the portal, but the portal has created an interdimensional rift. And I love that because, I don't know if it was, screaming obvious to everyone else at the time, which is like, oh, it's a metaphor. Stanford's arrival has created a physical dimensional rift and an emotional rift that we saw with Dipper and Mabel. And also, I noticed just this watch through in that scene, the picture of Dipper and Mabel that is on the desk in the basement. Mabel's covered by a box. It's only showing Dipper.
That's a mise en scène right there.
And Dipper, for the first time, is asked to keep a secret from Mabel. Mabel is, in the ending narration of Tourist Trapped, is the person that he decided he could trust most of all from day one. And it really shows that Ford is the guy who wrote Trust No One in the journal.
Yeah.
The more important thing, though, is J.K. Simmons just can't stay away from portals.
Exactly.
Or from interdimensional travel.
Yeah.
J.K. Simmons, of course, the voice of J. Jonah Jamesaurus in another Disney XD show that dealt with dimensional travel.
Years ago, I made a video about Islands of Adventure, the Spider-Man ride at Universal's Islands of Adventure in Universal Orlando. And I pointed out that J. Jonah Jameson's voice in that ride, it's done by Chris Edgerly, but it sounds a lot like Grunkle Stan.
Oh my gosh.
This was years before it was confirmed that Grunkle Stan's brother was J. Jonah Jameson.
Also, an announcement just playing throughout the facility harkens to Cave Johnson.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
J.K. Simmons, pleasure to meet you. Loved you in Lady Killers.
That joke is from your video.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So similar to how we can just reuse jokes from Tony's videos, we can also reuse things from Tony's podcasts. So why don't we do that?
Go right ahead. I'm not using them.
You know what? I'll take the cheese boodles route. Dave, Tony, Ella, was this episode a Bisney Plus or a Bisney Binus?
This is a huge Bisney Plus. I don't think there's any Disney blinuses in all of Gravity Falls. Every episode is at least really good. Some of them are freaking amazing. And this is absolutely a Disney Plus.
I will also go with Disney Plus on account that I co-created a Gravity Falls podcast, so it would be weird if it wasn't. And Dave?
I'm giving this a Disney Plus. It's... Honestly, I was nervous when I heard it was going to be a Dungeons & Dragons episode, because I thought, is it just going to redo the Community Dungeons & Dragons episode? Mm-hmm. Is it just going to redo Bender's game from Futurama? Community, another case where the creator of the show had not yet played Dungeons & Dragons when they made that episode.
Uh-huh.
Although he had written the classic Dead Alewives Dungeons & Dragons sketch, which went viral. But I guess that was just from observing his friends or something. Another one rides the Disney Plus.
It's a Disney Plus, of course. Come on. I mean, it's the one with the Hobbit 77 reference. People should watch that movie.
And Weird Al. So when this episode, when everyone realizes what a huge Disney Plus this episode is, they're all going to watch it on Disney Plus, and
the app.
It is going to skyrocket to #1 in the algorithm. So I think it's time that we answer that question that has baffled mankind and Hot Elf kind through the ages, namely, Butts Beep Attraction!
Butts the Blackson.
Buttress Biba Braction.
I love Buttress Biba Braction. She's a fantastic artist.
That's my Victorian woman drag character.
So, Charlie, what sort of theme park attraction would you make out of this episode?
Okay, so as you all know, I've never been to Walt Disney World or Disneyland, but I have been to the Land of Make-Believe in New Jersey thousands of times, so I know of what a theme park is. I think we can get there.
I mean, you've been to the good one. Everything else is just ripping that off.
So, you know the scene at the end where Toby Determined gets carried off by Griffin?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that.
You just get carried off by a griffin.
Just get... okay.
Yeah. You just get carried off by a bird and you have a moment of, am I gonna die or is this one of the rides? And then they just drop you off at the gift shop at the end and you go, okay. Whew. All right.
Now, are there a bunch of other griffins of various colors? Like, is there a gray griffin?
Waka waka. Dave, what would your interpretation of a theme park ride be?
So, as the narrator of the live-action George of the Jungle movie once said, every story gets to have its really big coincidence. And in the episode we watched today, the really big coincidence was that the infinite improbability dice just happened to generate the character from the game they were already playing. Now, we can't always count on those coincidences to happen, so from now on, when you go to a theme park, there is going to be an infinity-sided die being rolled to determine which characters you get to take pictures with.
Oh,
I like that. It's kind of a randomizer for the park. All right, so Tony, what about your guess?
Well, first of all, I'm not going to say a single word that begins with a B just to spite you people, but, oh, god damn it. So, I'm going to go for a huge deep cut here as a Weird Al fan.
Yeah.
I think Dave knows about this. I'm not sure if you two do. Back in 2009, Al wrote and directed a 3D movie for the Orange County Fair.
Al's Brain.
Al's Brain, yes. Al's
Great
Brain,
song.
a 3D journey through the human brain.
You see, your brain is divided into two hemispheres. Yeah. Your left controls your right side and your right controls your left side.
Yeah, this is a real obscure thing. It played at the Orange County Fair in 2009 and in 2009 and 2010. And it played, I think, at the Puyallup, Washington County Fair in 2009.
Yeah, and I know it only recently got an album release on the rarities.
Yeah, the Brain song that Al made for it eventually made it onto the medium rarities disc of Al's big Squeeze Box compilation. But the actual film has never gotten a proper release outside of those few county fairs. I think they might have actually lost the original file of it or something. Or Al said something like it's a piece of lost media now, even though it's a
got in the way of Dave's original recordings from that one podcast.
Yeah, it's a piece of lost media now, even though it's only like 10, 15 years old. So what they're going to do is they're going to reshoot it, but with Probabilitor.
Yes.
And he specifically wants to learn about the human brain so he can eat it.
Eat it.
Just eat it?
And he does a whole musical number. Eat it! But he's talking about eating brains. That's
love
what he's talking about.
The more you use your brain, the more I'll want to eat it.
Yep.
So that's very good.
Finally, a song about eating brains to join Jonathan Colton's in the lexicon.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, you're all wrong.
Ow!
Now you know what it feels like, Tony!
It's not as fun on this side of it.
The true attraction that is going to be based on this episode is the Diggity Dungeons and all that dance party experience. It is going to be a sort of a, they have like the Mad Tea Party dance party at the California park. It'll be kind of like that.
Sure.
It'll be a nightly sort of thing, kind of like a parade, but more like a show that just kind of pops up in the middle of the park, probably while you're trying to leave so you can't get out. And Probabilitizzle and his backup dancers are going to come out. They'll also have a character meet and greet on the side, I feel, because who wouldn't want to meet Probabilitizzle? And yeah, I think that's going to be a huge hit, and I think it's going to really revitalize the Diggity Dungeons and all that brand. I picture it... Actually, what I'm picturing is not in either Disneyland or California Adventure, but in the center. Right at both of the entrances, so that people have to watch it before they leave the park.
So, okay, this is a true story. About a year or so ago, at Magic Kingdom in Florida, they sprung on everyone one night. They were adding a nighttime DJ set to Main Street, like just at the train station.
Oh, that's good.
At the end of the night, there was just a loud DJ playing, mixing pop songs in Main Street in the turn of the century themed area.
Yeah.
Everybody hated it so much that he did not even come out for the second set.
Yeah, actually, you know what? Okay, addendum. Because it is all about upgrading an outdated fantasy game, this is going to be in the middle of Fantasyland. He is going to burst out of a wall every show. They're going to need to rebuild it every time.
For the sake of the podcast, I'm pretending I know what Fantasyland is.
Yeah, he's going to upgrade Fantasyland for the 9 Double Deuce. And you know what? Why don't we just bring back, I don't know, the Stitch Castle or something, or the Giant Cake Castle, something. Bring back all the cringy 90s things while we're at it.
The Stitch toilet paper on top of the birthday cake castle.
Yeah,
just throw them all together.
Yeah, toilet paper that monstrosity. Like, who slathered the Kremlin with Pepto-Bismol? You
know what? I think it's time that we go to an actual segment that we do.
From this podcast.
Yeah. So why don't
we have our new docent take us there?
Oh yeah, you know what? Where it's time to go, Tony.
Where is it time to go?
Sorry, first day. I understand.
Sure.
This is actually the part of the tour where you're supposed to lead our guest. Hi, Dave.
Hi.
I'm still a guest.
Just 1 second. Into the Hall of Conspiracies. So if you can give a little intro spiel.
Dave, if you'll come right this way, we must enter the Hall of Conspiracies. All right, so this looks like Reddit, and the user's named Metallion.
Oh, I thought it was Meta Lion.
Or
I like Metallion.
Oh man, the meta jokes are confusing the crap out of me. Are the events on Ducktective foreshadowing something that may happen to the Pines family? Alex did say someone is not surviving this season.
That's true.
Yeah, he said in an interview that a character...
Someone asked if there was going to be a death this season, and he said yes. That's going to start entering a lot of these fan theories.
Well, the death might have already happened. We don't know that Toby Determined survived.
Oh, he didn't. Oh, wait, no spoilers. Okay, shoot. Toby Determined may or may not have been deceased.
We might have witnessed the on-screen death of Toby Determined.
And then related to that is another Reddit comment.
Kobe Day Bryant. All right, that's good with the D. That's different to our B thing. Okay, yeah. I like it. Writes, so this might either be me really searching too hard or could be something crazy to look back on. The Ducktective show was obviously meant to be similar to Gravity Falls as a joke, such as the twins, the mysteries, etc. In the show, the recently revealed twin brother puts the other brother in the hospital and attempts to kill him.
And throws a bedpan at him.
With poop on it.
Yeah.
Or that's rust. It's rust, kids.
Because if it were poop, it would be white. He's a duck.
That's true. Huh?
It could be someone else's bedpan, though.
Oh,
Stop.
Gross.
Look, this is the episode that got away with you can kill someone in the forest if there's no cops around.
Yeah,
so.
it sure did. Do you think Ford is going to attempt to kill Stanley? Maybe Bill Cipher possesses Stanford after they make a deal, possibly to get rid of the interdimensional rift. They added the D in front of it again to
differentiate it.
Mm-hmm.
To differentiate it.
And then Bill tries to kill Stan? Whoa?
Question mark? Yeah, so again, coincidentally, like with Ducktective, Steven Universe did something similar to the thing that is foreshadowing things that will happen in the show that seem innocuous, because there's a character, Ronaldo, who is a conspiracy theorist, and he makes all these wild theories that, when he makes them in the time of the show, just seem random, but turn out to be, like, distorted, but still somewhat accurate to the deeper lore.
Polymorphic sentient rocks! They're here to hollow out the Earth! It's part of the Great Diamond Authority!
So I think, because there's a lot of crossover with these fandoms, that is maybe guiding a lot of this thinking, that Ducktective will somehow parallel what happens in the show, which is very interesting. On the subreddit, To Plant Trees posted a thought. You know that theory that Gompers is in with Cypher? Well, what if Gompers tried to steal Dipper's Dungeons, and More Dungeons die because he thought it was the illegal infinity-sided die? Cypher could seriously mess some stuff up with that thing. So even though Gompers' pupils are just a goat thing, people are still thinking that there's something up with him, even though it's
going with the whole goat as a symbol of Satan thing, or
that too.
That's
and there was
part of it.
Bill Cipher did an AMA on Reddit and answered a question about Gompers with "I like him better this way." So there's kind of there's maybe a link there.
Well, Bill isn't real. Alex did an AMA in character as Bill.
That's what you think.
This is also from Reddit, and it's CamZ, I think. CamXI.
Cam 11, maybe?
Maybe.
Possibly Cam 11.
Turn to camera 11 before you say this one.
Yeah.
And camera 11 says, I'm very suspicious of Ford right now. He told Dipper that he dismantled the portal and contained a small time rift. He tells Dipper not to tell anyone this, not even his sister. First off, why do you need to keep the fact that you dismantled the portal to be secret? Grunkle Stan only wanted the portal to get Ford back. Now that that's done, it shouldn't really matter to Stan or anyone else what's done to the portal. It's fine if Ford doesn't want to talk about his business in the basement, but deliberately making the dismantled portal a secret for Dipper to keep from everyone else is a highly suspicious action. Now, the time rift I understand needing to be a secret because it could potentially rip reality apart. The fewer people that know of its existence, the better. But why tell Dipper about that? I know that Ford and Dipper have bonded quite a bit, but a secret of that magnitude in the hands of a 12-year-old? No matter how intelligent and loyal Dipper may be, he's still very young and vulnerable. There's a decent chance that he may at some point tell his best friend / twin sister about it. Maybe not of his own volition, but the fact that he's keeping a new secret from her could strain his and Mabel's relationship. I could see Dipper telling her in order to mend the strain. Now Ford deliberately says to not even tell her. But he has to know the risk, right? Why would he take that risk? So he tells Dipper a 2-part secret. The dismantled portal, which shouldn't matter, and the time rift, which really matters. Dipper had no need to know this secret, but he's going to treasure it deeply, and I think Ford is counting on that. Also, Ford is kind of a jerk. Stealing the living room on the day of a season finale? That's messed up.
Yeah.
It sure is.
Very good speculation there.
On the piece of paper on the floor behind Dipper after Ford rolls a 32.
Which, same shot as the dragon names, I believe.
Yes. We see Radmaster and the key symbol, and that tells you how to translate the cryptogram in the credits, which is Excelsi whatever.
The end card combination cipher reads, Fun and games are great distractions, but small things can have chain reactions. Interesting. Tony and Dave, thank you so much for coming by to our podcast today to talk at length about Weird Al Yankovic and sort of talk about Gravity Falls.
and Dave, since we will never have the opportunity to talk about Weird Al in a high fantasy setting on a podcast together again, why don't you tell our listeners where to find you?
Yeah, it's pretty sad that we'll never have that specific opportunity again.
I can't even imagine how such an opportunity would arise, and it's not worth thinking about. Yeah. But most of my stuff can be found on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Doggans, Doggans. I've made a few videos about Gravity Falls. I've made a few videos about Weird Al. I've done a couple of live streams of The Secret of Monkey Island, which Charlie here has joined me for. And, hey, how did this not get made? If you ever want to do an episode about the unmade Monkey Island movie, Charlie and I would be good guests for that.
I would argue the best possible guess.
I would argue that David and Daniel would not approach that episode without us, because that would be a great deal of research from a base point. Also, you do an annual Decemberween video, correct?
That's true. I also have a lot of Homestar Runner videos. I forgot how many of my hyperfixations are relevant to this episode.
I mean, relevant to
the Pipe Dream podcast in general.
Yeah, everything. The things you talk about are the things I talk about, it seems to be.
Yeah, it's true. It's hard to keep track when there's so many.
And Tony, where can people find you and your stuff?
People can find me on Twitter at Tony Goldmark, on YouTube, youtube.com/Tony Goldmark. That's where you can find all 3 seasons of Some Jerk with a Camera, my old web series. And, of course, I've got a weekly podcast, Escape from Walt Disney. As of the recording of this, I don't know what the most recent episode for you listeners will be, because I haven't actually recorded them yet. But back in March and early April, because I ended up extending it to early April, I did Parks Month on Escape from Walt Disney, where for 5 consecutive episodes, we covered something related to theme parks. We covered a bunch of One Day at Disney shorts. We covered an episode of Miles from Tomorrowland, which is an in-title only reference to theme parks.
Right.
We covered the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and unfortunately did not mention Monkey Island once. Sorry, Dave. Sorry, Charlie. We covered an episode of Magic of Disney's Animal Kingdom, and an episode of Behind the Attraction, which Dave is on. So, so go check all those out. Escape from Walt Disney, wherever podcasts are available.
And if you want to find more episodes of this podcast, go to our host network, pipedreampodcast.com, where you can find other shows like How Did This Not Get Made, Come On for Hookah Pods, and Escape from Walt Disney.
Why, yes.
Also on pipedreampodcasts.com, you can find a link to our show's social medias, Discord server, and our Patreon, patreon.com/Mystery Shack. We just reached our $100 goal to have an October podcast on Over the Garden Wall.
Yeah, gonna be a nice little mini-series. $3 will get you a shout-out at the end of episodes. $5 will get you into viewing parties for whatever episode we're talking about. Join us tonight in the Discord for Dungeons, and more Dungeons. And $40 gets you a voice commission from Charlie or an art commission from myself. Check out our merch store at crowdmade.com/collections/Mystery Shack Look Back. You might not have as much swag as Probabilitizzle, but you can get close.
Unfortunately, and I'm sorry, there's currently no Dog with a Pod merch.
Contact us at mysteryshacklookback@gmail.com, because we all have cell phones, so come on, let's get real.
We all have cell phones, so come on, let's get real. We all got them, we all have cell phones, so come on, let's get real.
Thank you to Kyle Carosa for making the instrumental to our theme song today. The Hall of Conspiracies theme is Lentil Dentist, which is a remix of our first episode by Sim and the Dim Bulb V2-0. Listen to the full thing at the link in the description. It is fantastic.
And Adam, we're sorry we forgot our apple slices.
Well, I had them. I just said I would eat them last, and then I forgot to.
Yeah, apple slices are good before you record because it gets the excess spit out of your mouth. But when that's not the case, the magic of the Spittle Man always does what the apples didn't.
It's true. An apple a day keeps the Spittle Man away.
Unfortunately, my wife is allergic to apples, so we have none in this house.
My wife is allergic to spit.
You don't...
Dead silence from all three of you.
Could not come up with something.
I was trying to think of a response, and we've been going too long for
Mike. Couldn't do it.
I mean, I get it. I'm not laughing, but I get it.
And, I think it is appropriate to end this episode with one of the D&D-est Weird Al songs, I feel. Here's White and Nerdy.
Now, Ella, I'm curious, can you rap to a ukulele?
Well, let's find out. They see me mowing my front lawn. I know they're all thinking I'm so white and nerdy. Think I'm just too white and nerdy. Think I'm just too white and nerdy. Just see, I'm white and nerdy. Look at me, I'm white and nerdy. First in my class, you were at MIT. Got skills, I'm a champion of D&D. MC Escher, that's my favorite MC. Keep your 40, I'll just have an Earl tea. My rims never spin, to the contrary. You'll find that they're quite stationary. All of my action figures are cherry. Stephen Hawking's in my library. My MySpace page is all totally pimped out. Got people begging for a top 8 spaces. Yo, I know pie to 1,000 places. Ain't got no grills, but I still wear braces. I'm nerdy in the extreme and whiter than sour cream. I was in AV Club and Glee Club and even the chess team. Only question I ever thought was hard was, do I like Kirk or do I like Picard? Spend every weekend at the Renaissance Fair, got my name on my underwear.
Hey, YouTube Ford.
Hello, Table Read Stan. Care to explain what you're doing in my lab?
Well, I charged a bunch of people a lot of money just to say their names. Suckers. Anyway, there's a lot of them, and I don't feel like, reading them all myself. You want to do something?
I have many moral objections to this, but you've tempted me with an organized list.
Thank you too, Daddy Driftwood.
And Daddy Buttons.
Friendly local geek.
Fun boringness.
Hugh Salinas.
Juno Series, I guess it's pronounced.
Liz Clark.
David, oh boy, okay. Ganssle?
You got it, yes, Ganssle.
Aren't you Mr. Fancy?
I was voted Mr. Fancy 5 years running.
Don't remind me, I remember.
Richard Scanland.
Jamie Belts. I want to belt a couple of shots of whiskey after this list. Go ahead.
Ryan Faber.
Stephen Patrick Mulholland. Oh, Mulholland Drive. Very interesting. All right.
It's a good film. Gwen Prime.
Junior Bruh.
Joseph Jones.
Olive Pluto.
Oliver. There's an R there, Stan.
Oh, Oliver Pluto. I'm sorry, I was distracted by the object that's no longer a planet at the end.
Kuiper object, that's the term.
Whatever for. That was your thing, not mine. Oliver Pluto.
Petey Piranha Plant.
Elizabeth Neuenfeld.
Mumpleteen D. Wumpleteen.
Oh boy, these kids these days. Vanillin Sucker.
Zucker, not sucker.
Whatever, he's a sucker. He might be a Zucker, but he's also a sucker. Vanillin Zucker.
Ro Davis.
Adam with 2 A's, a D, and an M.
Delphine Dussy.
May? Just May.
Jessie Marie McDougal.
B. Calisoda.
Rich Rawl.
Easy Snake Oven.
Samantha Angley. And Spencer Neil Campbell. Stan, what are all these patrons paying for anyway?
Oh, just the essentials. This brown meat doesn't buy itself.
Nor does Fully Clothed Women magazine, evidently.
Hey, keep your hands off that. Help me stock up for the apocalypse at patreon.com/Mystery Shack.